The afternoon sun fell softly across the airport windows, painting long golden streaks over the waiting passengers, each lost in their own world. Among them sat a young woman in seat 14C of Flight 278, silent, calm, and almost invisible. She didn't wear anything special. A simple jacket, hair tied back neatly, and eyes that looked out the window more than at people. No one paid her any attention. To everyone around her, she was just another traveler. But there was something about her presence, and something quiet yet strong. The flight attendants noticed it too. When they passed by her row, they could sense she wasn't like the others. There was discipline in the way she sat, and her eyes scanned the aircraft in small practiced movements, like she was always aware of everything. The engine started to hum as the plane prepared for takeoff. The seatbelt signs blinked, and a gentle voice came through the speakers reminding everyone to buckle up. The woman in 14C pressed her seatbelt click without hesitation. Her movements were precise, almost like muscle memory, as if she had done this countless times before, but not as a passenger. As the plane rose into the sky, she closed her eyes for a moment, breathing slowly, calmly. Outside, the clouds stretched like a sea of white. Inside, passengers relaxed, chatting softly, scrolling through phones, ordering drinks. No one knew that something extraordinary was about to happen thousands of feet above the earth. Midway through the flight, a strange silence settled over the cabin. It wasn't the kind that comes from peace, or it was tense, uneasy. The captain's voice came over the intercom, slightly shaky. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing an unexpected communication issue with the control tower. Please remain calm and seated." A few passengers exchanged nervous glances. The woman in 14C didn't move. Her expression stayed calm, but her fingers tightened slightly around the armrest. She looked out the window, and her eyes widened just a bit. Two fighter jets, F-16s, were flying alongside the commercial plane, their wings glinting in the sunlight. People started to notice and gasp. Children pointed, adults whispered. "Why are they here?" Someone muttered. The F-16s were close, too close. The pilots inside were clearly looking toward the passenger plane. One of them signaled something with his hand. The atmosphere in the cabin thickened. The flight attendants whispered with each other, unsure of what was happening. Then the captain's voice returned, more controlled but nervous. "Ladies and gentlemen, please stay calm. We've been instructed to hold position. Everything is under control," but it didn't feel under control. The woman in 14C unbuckled her seatbelt slightly, leaning to get a better view. She could see the markings on the fighter jet, Air Force insignia. Her heartbeat slowed, not from fear, but from something else. Memory. Recognition. She looked closely at one of the jets, and noticed the lead pilot making a hand signal, one she knew all too well. Her lips parted slightly, and she whispered something under her breath. A call sign. It was as if the air itself froze for a moment. The flight attendant closest to her noticed and leaned in nervously. "Ma'am, please stay seated." But before she could reply, something happened outside that no one on the plane could explain. Both F-16 pilots suddenly straightened in their seats. The lead pilot placed his hand to his helmet and gave a sharp salute toward the passenger window, toward her seat. The passengers near 14C turned, confused. "What's going on?" someone whispered. The woman didn't answer. She simply looked out, her eyes meeting the pilots through the thick glass and air between them. The entire cabin seemed to fall into stunned silence. Even the captain's voice hesitated, as if unsure what to say. The fighter jets held their formation for a few moments, then slowly veered off, disappearing into the horizon. No one understood what had just happened, but the woman in 14C knew. Her gaze followed the jets until they were gone. She reached into her small bag and touched something, a patch worn but well kept, bearing a symbol of wings and a lightning bolt, and beneath it, a name, her old call sign. The passengers might never know who she truly was, but the F-16 pilots did. They recognized the legend sitting quietly among them, the one they'd been taught about in training, the woman they had once only heard stories of, now just a silent passenger in seat 14C. And as the clouds drifted past, the sky itself seemed to remember her name. The plane continued on its flight path, but everyone could feel something had changed. The air inside the cabin felt heavier, almost like everyone was holding their breath at once. The woman in seat 14C remained still, her eyes fixed on the empty sky where the F-16s had vanished. A few passengers whispered about what they saw, but no one dared to ask her directly. She didn't look like someone who would talk much. She carried a quiet authority that made people instinctively respectful. A flight attendant slowly walked down the aisle, her voice soft. "Ma'am, are you all right?" The woman looked up, her calm smile barely there. "Yes, I'm fine, just unexpected company." The attendant tried to smile back, but her hands trembled a little. She had seen the salute too. Minutes passed, but curiosity was building like pressure in a sealed cabin. A man sitting behind her leaned forward slightly, whispering, "Excuse me, did those pilots just salute you?" The woman didn't turn around. They thought they recognized someone. Her answer was gentle but final, leaving no space for another question. The captain made another announcement, trying to lighten the tension. "Folks, we've confirmed everything is fine. Those F-16s were just part of a standard check. We're cleared to continue to destination." But even he didn't sound convinced. Outside, the sky was endless blue. The woman's gaze softened as she watched the horizon, lost in thought. Her mind drifted back to years ago. The roar of jet engines, the smell of fuel, the endless sky that used to be her second home. She remembered her squadron, their laughter through radio static, their courage under fire, and then the day everything ended. The mission no one talked about, the one that left her walking away from the uniform for good. She had been flying under a call sign that became legend, but legends carry weight. When she disappeared from service, rumors spread. Some said she died in combat, others said she walked away after saving lives. But the truth lived quietly inside her, unspoken, just like she preferred it. Back in the present, a sudden turbulence shook the plane, bringing her back to reality. A few passengers screamed softly. The seatbelt sign blinked again. The woman instinctively gripped her seat, but her eyes darted toward the sound of the engines. Something wasn't right. It wasn't just turbulence. She could hear a slight, irregular vibration, something only trained ears would catch. She leaned forward slightly, her instincts kicking in. The engines were strong, but something in the right side didn't sound stable. Her heart started to beat faster, not from fear but from focus. The woman in 14C wasn't just a passenger anymore. She was reading the situation like a pilot reading wind currents. Moments later, the captain's voice came through, tighter this time. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing a small technical issue. Please remain seated," the passengers murmured nervously. The woman's eyes narrowed. She unbuckled her belt halfway and looked toward the cockpit door. She didn't want to interfere, not yet, but if things got worse, she might not have a choice. The flight attendant approached again, her voice shaking slightly. "Ma'am, please stay seated, we'll be fine." The woman looked at her gently. "You will. Just make sure everyone stays calm." The attendant blinked, unsure why her words felt like an order instead of advice. She nodded and hurried back. Minutes later, the plane dipped slightly and a faint alarm sound echoed from the front. A baby started crying. People clutched their armrests, eyes wide. The woman in 14C looked toward the cockpit again. Her breathing stayed steady. She reached for the bag beneath her seat and quietly took out the old Air Force patch again, as if drawing strength from it. Then, over the radio channel that only the pilots could hear, a faint message came through, scrambled, faint but clear enough for her trained ears. "Falcon, do you copy?" Her blood ran cold for a second. That call sign hadn't been used in years. No one should know it anymore. And yet, here it was, echoing through the static of a passenger plane's emergency frequency. She looked around. No one else heard it. Just her. Her fingers trembled slightly as she pressed her palm over her chest. Falcon. That was her. Outside, a shadow crossed the window. Another F-16 flying parallel again, closer this time. Its pilot turned his head as if trying to confirm something. The woman in 14C stared back, her eyes locking onto his visor. The voice came again through the static, this time more direct. "Falcon, if that's you, we've got eyes on your flight. Say the word." She closed her eyes for a moment, exhaling slowly. She had promised herself she'd never go back. Never answer that call again. But as the engine rattled and fear spread through the cabin, she knew. Sometimes the past doesn't ask permission to return. The woman in 14C opened her eyes. The Falcon was awake again. The hangar lights flickered faintly as night settled over the base. The air smelled of fuel and rain, and the woman once known as Falcon stood before her old jet like someone standing before a ghost. She ran her hand along the cool metal skin of the aircraft, feeling every rivet, every mark she had once memorized. It was more than just a machine. It was a part of her, a silent witness to everything she'd been through. Behind her, the man in uniform, her old commander, watched quietly. He didn't rush her. He knew she wasn't ready to face what was coming, not yet. "You know what this means," he said softly. She didn't turn around. "It means someone's trying to bring the past back to life," she replied. He nodded slowly. "And they're using your name to do it." Her jaw tightened. She had spent years running from that name, from the memories of the mission that ended everything, the one where she disobeyed an order to save civilians caught in a no-fly zone, the one that cost her squadron their trust and her co-pilot his life. She had vanished after that quietly, letting the world believe she was gone. She looked up at the ceiling, blinking back the weight in her eyes. "You still haven't told me who sent the transmission." Her commander hesitated, then reached into his pocket, pulling out a small data chip. "We traced the source to an airstrip that doesn't officially exist. But there's something you should see before you decide what to do." He handed her a small tablet and inserted the chip. A video opened. The image was shaky, filmed from a helmet camera. A young pilot's voice came through, breathless and afraid. "We found it. Coordinates match. But there's someone here." The camera turned and froze on a figure standing near a grounded aircraft. A woman, tall, wearing a flight jacket, her face hidden by the glare of sunlight. The Falcon felt her heart skip. The woman in the footage turned slightly, and for a brief second her face came into view. It was her. Or rather, someone who looked exactly like her. Her knees almost gave way. "That's not possible." Her commander's eyes darkened. "That's why we need you back. Whoever this is, she's using your face, your voice, and your signature codes. The pilots call her Ghost Falcon." She stared at the screen, silent. Her reflection stared back from the tablet, older, wearier, haunted. The thought that someone was impersonating her wasn't just dangerous, it was personal. Someone was rewriting her story, wearing her legend like a mask. After a long silence, she whispered, "You said they sent coordinates. Where?" He tapped the map on the tablet. "Northern border. Near the mountains. Old radar blind spot. If she's hiding there, we'll never catch her without help." She looked up, meeting his eyes. "Then I'll go," he frowned. "You've been out of the sky for years." "I never forgot how to fly," she said firmly. He stared at her for a long moment, then gave a slow nod. "You'll have backup. A small team. But you lead." She turned back to her jet. The once buried part of her, the soldier, the pilot, the leader, stirred again. She could almost hear her co-pilot's voice, calm and steady in her ear as it used to be. "Eyes up, Falcon. The sky remembers you." The next morning, the base was alive with motion. Technicians prepped Falcon 1 for flight, refueling, checking wings, running diagnostics. She stood in her flight suit, feeling its weight again after all those years. Her fingers traced the old patch sewn near her shoulder, the Falcon emblem, faded but proud. As she climbed into the cockpit, memories flooded back. The smell of metal, the hum of the controls, the steady rhythm of her own heartbeat syncing with the machine. It felt like returning home. Her commander's voice came through the radio from the control room. "Falcon 1, are you ready for takeoff?" She smiled faintly. Ready as ever. The engines roared to life, shaking the air. The runway lights stretched out like a path of fire beneath her. She pushed the throttle forward, feeling the old power surge through her once more. The aircraft lifted gracefully into the dawn, slicing through the mist, the sun rising in front of her like a promise. At 10,000 feet, the radar blinked. A faint signal appeared, unidentified, moving fast, exactly where the coordinates had pointed. Her pulse quickened. "Command, I have visual," she said calmly. "Copy that, Falcon 1. Proceed with caution." The other signal drew closer. Through the clouds, she saw it. A dark jet with markings nearly identical to hers, flying silent and smooth. And inside it, she could see a figure turning toward her. The same jacket. The same helmet design. The same call sign etched under the cockpit. For a long moment, both aircraft flew side by side, mirrors of each other. The woman in the other jet lifted her hand slowly, as if greeting her reflection. Falcon's breath caught. Whoever she wasn't just a copy. She was sending a message. The Ghost Falcon had been waiting for her. The clouds curled around both jets like ghostly waves, their engines slicing through the morning air with a deep roar that echoed across the mountains. The woman in Falcon 1 gripped the control stick tightly, her pulse steady but fierce. The other jet, sleek, silent, and dark, matched her every movement like a reflection in glass. For a moment it felt unreal, like she was chasing her own shadow across the sky. "Command," she said, her voice calm but edged with tension. "Visual confirmed. Unidentified jet matching my call sign, my design, and my flight pattern." There was a crackle of silence before Command replied. "Copy that, Falcon 1. Proceed carefully. We have no record of any authorized aircraft in that zone." The mysterious jet tilted slightly, coming closer, almost brushing the invisible boundary of danger. Then a voice came through her radio, familiar, clear, and impossible. "Falcon," it said softly. "You shouldn't have come." Her heart froze. That voice. It wasn't just similar, it was identical to hers. Same tone, same rhythm, same calm strength. "Who are you?" she demanded. "I'm what's left of you," the voice replied. The part they couldn't bury. Her fingers tightened around the controls. "That's not possible." The other pilot laughed quietly, a chilling, almost sad sound. "They erased your name from the records, Falcon. But someone had to keep flying. Someone had to finish what you started." The memory of her last mission came flooding back. The destroyed village, the civilian convoy trapped beneath fire, her co-pilot's voice fading through the comms. The government had silenced everything, claiming the mission never happened. They called her reckless for saving lives that didn't exist. "You were there," she whispered. "You were part of the operation?" The voice hesitated, then said, "I was the operation." Before she could respond, the radar beeped sharply. The unknown jet broke formation and dived low toward the mountains. Falcon's instincts took over. She pushed her throttle forward, the engines roaring as she followed through the thin layer of clouds. The world below was rugged and sharp, filled with deep valleys and snow-capped ridges. "Command, suspect heading north by northwest, altitude dropping fast," she reported. "Falcon 1, disengage," Command ordered. "Do not pursue. That jet is transmitting scrambled signals, unknown source." But Falcon ignored it. "Negative, Command. If I lose visual now, we may never find her again." The chase tore through the sky like lightning. The two jets looped between canyons, cutting through streams of fog. The G-forces pulled at her body, but her focus was locked on the target ahead. At last, the Ghost Falcon leveled out and slowed. The voice returned on the radio, calmer now. "You always had trouble letting go, didn't you? Tell me who you are." Falcon snapped. "Look below," the voice said. Falcon glanced down, and what she saw made her chest tighten. Hidden in the valley below was a makeshift airfield, barely visible from above. Old aircraft, trucks, and tents were arranged in perfect military order, but with no national insignia. It wasn't an enemy base. It was something else. "These people were left behind," the voice continued, "forgotten by the same system that forgot you. I found them, trained them. We protect the ones you couldn't." Falcon's breath caught. "You're running rogue ops," the other voice didn't deny it. "We're doing what you once did, without permission, without medals, but for the same reason." Falcon's eyes softened slightly. "You're using my name to cover your missions." "I'm using it to remind them that heroes still exist," the voice said. For the first time, Falcon didn't know what to say. This wasn't an enemy, it was someone who believed they were continuing her fight. But something still didn't add up. "Why reach out now?" she asked quietly. "Why show yourself to me?" The other pilot's jet drifted closer, the sun glinting off the canopy. For a second, Falcon saw her own reflection in that dark glass. Her same face, same eyes, but younger, sharper, untouched by regret. "Because," the voice said softly, "they're coming for both of us." The radar pinged again, multiple fast-moving objects approaching from the west. 6 new signals spreading like a fan, unknown identifiers. The Ghost Falcon's jet tilted upward sharply. "You led them here," she said, her voice suddenly cold. "No," Falcon replied. "I didn't know." "Then you better fly." "Because they're not after me anymore," the voice cut in. The sky exploded into chaos. Missiles streaked through the clouds as the 6 new aircraft closed in fast. Falcon rolled sharply, dodging the first barrage, the sonic boom shaking her cockpit. The Ghost Falcon dove low into the valley. "Who are they?" Falcon shouted, but the voice didn't answer. Only static filled her headset now. As she broke through the clouds again, she saw 2 of the incoming jets split formation, one locking directly onto her radar. The voice still echoed in her mind. "Falcon, do you copy?" It had been years since anyone had called her that. She thought that part of her life was buried for good, but hearing it again felt like an old door opening somewhere deep inside her, one that led to memories she had tried to lock away forever. Outside the window, the F-16 kept its position beside the plane. Its silver body gleamed under the sunlight, wings slicing through the air with military precision. The passengers were still murmuring, frightened and confused. Phones were out, cameras too, people recording what they didn't understand. But the woman in 14C didn't move. She was listening, not with her ears, but with instinct. The radio static faded again for a second, replaced by a familiar coded signal. It was short, rhythmic, and unmistakable, a call for help. Her body stiffened. She had used that same emergency pattern years ago, during a mission that almost cost her life. The captain's voice came again, tense but calm. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are working on a minor issue with our right engine. We're in touch with ground control. Please stay calm." But his tone betrayed the truth. He wasn't sure what was happening anymore. The woman knew that if the engine failed completely, they wouldn't have enough altitude to glide far, and with hundreds of lives on board, every second mattered. She took a deep breath, stood halfway, and pressed the attendant call button. The same flight attendant from earlier appeared, her face pale. "Ma'am, please stay seated." "I need to speak to the captain," the woman said quietly. Her tone wasn't rude, but it carried command, the kind that didn't leave room for refusal. The attendant hesitated. I can't let you. Tell him Falcon requests 5 seconds. He'll understand." The words made no sense to the attendant, but the look in the woman's eyes said everything. She nodded quickly and hurried toward the cockpit. The cabin stayed uneasy. The passengers whispered, confused why someone from economy would be asking to speak to the pilots in the middle of an emergency. The woman stayed calm, her hand resting on her lap, her eyes focused on the horizon. After a minute, the cockpit door opened slightly. The captain himself stepped out. His eyes were wide, unsure. He looked at her, and for a second, disbelief flashed across his face. "Ma'am, Falcon?" She gave a small nod. "Let me in. You're losing pressure in the right turbine. If you shut it down manually, you'll stabilize the flow before it locks." He didn't ask how she knew. Somehow he just believed her. Maybe it was the way she spoke, or maybe because he recognized her face from the framed photo in the Air Force Academy hallways. He opened the door and let her in. The passengers gasped softly as she disappeared into the cockpit. Inside, the air was tight, the smell of metal and stress filling every inch. The co-pilot turned, confused, but the captain raised a hand. "She's cleared. Trust me." The woman slipped into the jump seat and scanned the instruments quickly. Her hands moved with practiced precision, tapping dials, adjusting levers. "Cut the secondary intake. The sensor's feeding false data," she said firmly. The co-pilot obeyed, and within seconds the vibration began to calm. The warning light dimmed. The engine steadied. The captain looked at her in awe. "How did you—" She didn't answer. She just nodded slightly, her eyes fixed on the window. Outside, the F-16 was still there, watching over them. The pilot inside lifted his hand again, not a salute this time, but a sign of acknowledgement. She reached for the radio. "This is Civilian Flight 278. Situation under control." Then, after a pause, her voice softened. "Tell Command Falcon says thank you." There was silence on the other end for a moment, then a voice replied quietly, "It's an honor, ma'am." "Welcome back." The F-16s peeled away slowly, leaving the airliner alone again. The woman leaned back, exhaling deeply. Her heartbeat finally began to slow. The captain turned toward her. "We owe you everything." "You just saved us," she smiled faintly. "You saved yourselves. I just reminded the sky who we are." He stared at her, words failing. "They told us you were gone," he whispered. She looked out the window again, her reflection blending with the clouds. Sometimes disappearing is the only way to find peace. For a moment, no one spoke. The hum of the engines filled the silence, steady and strong. When she stepped out of the cockpit, the passengers stared in stunned silence. No one knew her name, but everyone could feel it, that something remarkable had just happened. She walked quietly back to seat 14C, sat down, and closed her eyes. The clouds outside stretched endlessly, and for the first time in years she allowed herself to breathe freely. But deep inside, She knew this wasn't over. Someone somewhere had called her call sign again for a reason, and the sky, the same sky she once ruled, wasn't done with her yet. The passengers clapped softly when the captain announced that the flight was safe again, but the woman in seat 14C didn't smile. She simply looked outside, her expression calm yet distant. The F-16s had vanished into the endless blue, but their presence still lingered in her mind like an echo. The call sign Falcon had stirred something deep within her, something she had buried long ago beneath metals, silence, and grief. When the plane finally landed, people cheered. Some passengers looked toward her with quiet curiosity, trying to figure out who she really was. But she stood up slowly, grabbed her small carry-on, and disappeared into the crowd before anyone could ask. She had learned to walk away long before people started asking questions. At the airport gate, she moved like a shadow, unhurried, unnoticed. But she knew she wasn't alone. Years of experience had trained her senses too well. She could feel eyes watching her. A man in plain clothes stood by a coffee counter pretending to read his phone, but his body language was too stiff. Another near the exit held his earpiece too casually. Government men, she thought. The kind who knew what Falcon really meant. She continued walking without breaking stride. Outside, the air was cool, and the low hum of the city filled the night. A black SUV was parked near the curb, its headlights flashing once, a signal. She hesitated for a second, then walked toward it. The back door opened and a familiar voice came from inside. "Didn't expect to find you on a commercial flight, Falcon." She froze. That voice sounded calm, deep, and unmistakably military. She looked inside and saw a man she hadn't seen in nearly a decade. His hair was grayer now, but the same sharpness lived in his eyes. He smiled faintly. "You've been hiding well," she sighed softly. "Not hiding, just living quietly." He motioned to the seat beside him. "Then you'll hate what I'm about to say." She stepped in, the door shutting behind her with a soft thud. The SUV began to move through the airport roads. For a moment, neither spoke. The world outside blurred past in streaks of orange lights. He finally broke the silence. "Those F-16s didn't just salute you. They were scrambled because someone used your old encryption key." Her head turned sharply. "That's impossible. That key was destroyed after my last mission." He nodded. "That's what we thought. But someone out there just brought it back online." She leaned back, her eyes narrowing. "Who would even know about it?" "Only your squadron. And command." He paused, then added, "And whoever you saved that day?" She looked away, her throat tightening. Memories flashed. The last mission, the explosion, the loss of her co-pilot, the classified operation that ended her career. She had been ordered to vanish, to live as if she never existed, but now her past had found her again. "What do you need from me?" she asked quietly. He studied her face. "We need your mind, not your wings. Someone's trying to use your name, your legend, to move something dangerous under radar. You still have clearance, whether you like it or not." She laughed softly, but there was no humor in it. "You think I can just walk back in after years of silence? I'm not Falcon anymore." He looked straight ahead. "Maybe not, but whoever's out there thinks you are." The SUV turned onto a quiet road leading to a small airbase. The fences glowed under floodlights. As they passed the gate, soldiers saluted without even knowing who was inside. The weight of familiarity pressed on her chest. Inside the hangar, she saw something that made her stop breathing for a second. Her old aircraft, the one she thought had been destroyed, stood there, restored and shining under the lights. The name Falcon 1 still painted neatly near the cockpit. Her hand trembled slightly as she touched the metal surface. "You kept it," he nodded. "We couldn't scrap history." For a long time she said nothing. Then quietly she whispered, "You said someone used my encryption key. What were they transmitting?" He looked at her, his voice low. "Coordinates. High altitude. Near the northern border. But that's not the strange part. The message ended with your signature." She turned slowly to face him. "My signature?" He nodded once. "Yes, 3 letters. F-17, her eyes widened slightly. That was the code she used on her final classified rescue mission, the one never recorded in public files. The one that saved lives and cost others. She took a step back, her breath shaky. "If someone has that code, it means they were there." The man nodded grimly. "Exactly. Which means your past isn't over, Falcon. It's coming back, and this time, it's not in the sky." She stared at the jet once more, her reflection shimmering on its surface. For years she had run from her name, her wings, her ghosts, but now fate had caught up and deep down she knew where she would have to fly again. "Command, we're under attack. Unknown hostiles, repeat, unknown hostiles," she yelled. The response came fractured, broken by interference. Falcon gritted her teeth. The chase wasn't just about a name anymore. Someone had set a trap and she was right in the middle of it. And for the first time in years, she realized this wasn't about who she was. It was about who she was meant to be again. The sky was no longer calm. Trails of fire cut across the clouds as missiles streaked past, their smoke twisting into wild shapes. The roar of engines filled the air like thunder. Falcon's jet shook violently as she spun through the chaos, her heart pounding in rhythm with the beeping alarms. "Command. Multiple hostiles closing in, 6 aircraft unmarked, aggressive," she shouted. Voice steady despite the panic around her. Static replied. The connection was gone. She was alone. Below her, the Ghost Falcon's black jet banked hard through a narrow canyon, trying to disappear into the folds of rock. Falcon followed, pushing her aircraft to the limit. Her vision blurred for a moment, but she didn't back off. Years of instinct guided her. Suddenly, the enemy jets broke formation. 4 of them dove after the Ghost Falcon while 2 locked onto her. Falcon clenched her jaw. "Not today," she whispered, pulling the stick sharply upward. Her jet shot skyward, the world falling away beneath her. She flipped the switch for the countermeasures, the chaff exploding behind her like silver fireworks. Missiles detonated harmlessly in the air. As she steadied her aircraft, the radio crackled again. Weak, but clear. "Falcon, this isn't your fight. Leave now." It was the Ghost Falcon, not a chance, she replied. "You wanted me to find you." "I'm not leaving you behind," the other voice paused. Then almost softly, "You still sound like him." The words hit her like a gust of wind. Him, her co-pilot, the one she had lost on that final mission. Before she could ask, the Ghost Falcon's jet suddenly rose beside hers, engines screaming in perfect sync. The 2 aircraft flew side by side, cutting through the valley like twin blades of light. "Who are you, really?" Falcon demanded. The answer came through the static. Soft, pained. "He didn't die, Falcon. He survived. I'm his daughter." Falcon froze, her breath caught in her throat. "He used to talk about you," the voice continued, "about how you defied orders to save innocent lives. He said the world wouldn't understand. He said you were the bravest pilot he ever knew." Falcon's hands trembled slightly. "He had a child?" "Yes," the voice said quietly. "After the crash, he was rescued. But he couldn't return to duty. He passed away 5 years ago. I found your file while going through his things. The system erased your name, but he kept it alive. He called you his sister in the sky." Falcon felt something deep in her chest break open. The years of silence, guilt, and exile, all of it crashed into her like a storm. "You've been using my call sign," she whispered, "because you thought you were carrying his memory." "Yes," the young pilot said. "He said if the world ever forgot the Falcon, I should remind them." The emotion in her voice was raw, but there was no time to grieve. The radar flashed again, 4 enemy jets closing in fast. "They're locking on you," Falcon warned. "Stay high." "I can handle it," the girl replied, her tone too brave for her years. "Don't be foolish." Falcon shouted. "You're flying a legacy, not a weapon." But before she could say more, the Ghost Falcon's jet broke formation and turned directly toward the attackers. Falcon's eyes widened. "No, don't do this." The radio went quiet for a heartbeat. Then the girl's voice came through one last time, calm and steady. "My father said a falcon never runs from the storm. Thank you for showing me why." And then light. A sudden flash filled the sky as the Ghost Falcon released a flare package and dived straight into the enemy formation. The explosion shook the heavens. 3 hostile jets disintegrated instantly, their debris scattering through the air like burning feathers. Falcon's scream echoed inside her helmet, silent to the world. "No!" She dove through the smoke, her eyes scanning the wreckage. Flames licked the mountain ridges below. There was nothing left but fire and wind. Tears blurred her vision, but she forced her jet to climb higher. One enemy remained, circling like a vulture. With a deep breath, she locked onto it and whispered, "For her. For all of them." She fired. The missile tore through the clouds, finding its mark with devastating precision. The final jet exploded in silence, swallowed by light, and then there was peace again. Only the sound of her breathing and the soft hum of the engine remained. She hovered above the valley for a long time, her hands still shaking. The sun broke through the clouds, casting a golden glow over the wreckage below. Somewhere in that light she could almost see two shadows, her co-pilot and the girl, flying beside her one last time. She touched the old patch on her sleeve, her voice barely a whisper. The sky remembers us. As she turned her jet toward base, she knew she couldn't disappear again. The world still needed people who remembered what honor meant, people who would rise even when forgotten. And though the legend of Falcon would never appear in any official report, somewhere across the silent sky, every pilot who looked up that day would feel it. A salute not to a name, but to a spirit that never stopped flying.